So many of you will remember a game that promised us awesome gameplay, creative story, and even better graphics, but failed to deliver on just about all fronts. It's Watch Dogs, and it's back in the news. Let's talk about it right here on episode 66. So when I think about all the games that I've played over the last couple of years, Watch Dogs is not that memorable. In fact, I did a little podcast with Gaming Arcadia HD and Dormouse03. I'm gonna leave that link in the description below if you guys want to check it out. And we basically got our feelings out about Watch Dogs. Now, we got our feelings out about what the game actually was and not necessarily about what was promised, even though that was discussed in that podcast as well. So now Watch Dogs is back in the news, and this is one of the headlines. It says Watch Dogs downgrade backlash changed Ubisoft's approach to showing games, says CEO. I'm going to be linking this article in the description below as well so you guys can check it out. I'm only going to go through a couple of things here. He's actually speaking to The Guardian, and he says, look, we want to focus on making sure that games are playable on the target hardware before we show them off at events such as E3. And I think we all can remember how this game looked at E3. I think all of us were pumped at the graphics and oh my god, this thing truly looks next gen. I'm going crazy out of my mind with graphics, right? And then we get the game and it's not even close. Now, not to say that it wasn't a beautiful game, because I think it was. And I think if they'd have just shown us what we ended up playing at E3, I think we all would have been pretty much pleased with it. I mean, it was a gorgeous looking game, but you can't go from a 10 to a 5 and expect people not to get upset. Let me give you one more quote right here. It says, when we show something, we ask the team to make sure it's playable and make sure gamers can immediately see exactly what it is. That's what we learned from the Watch Dogs experience. If it can't be played on the target machine, it can be a risk. So here's my question to the Watch Dogs team. Did you really have to learn that? Did you really have to learn that if it doesn't play on the target machine, it's a risk? That's my question, right? If I'm the CEO of a company and I'm sitting back and I'm, watching people develop games and build games and show games off, if I know that what I'm showing people is not even going to be close to what they're going to be getting when they pay the money, this isn't a life lesson I have to learn. That's just negligence, in my opinion. There's no apology for it, right? You knew, period. And I don't know that that can be something that's easily forgiven. Now, here's what I find really interesting about this article. About half the article is spent apologizing, and I'll put that in quotes because I think we all know what apologies mean coming from some of these big companies. I think we can tell the ones that are genuine and not genuine. And I don't think this is that genuine. And I'll tell you why. Because half of the article is spent talking about Watch Dogs and how it's a franchise and how they think they launched a good first iteration to this franchise. They introduced a good world and, gameplay mechanics. And it may have been a bit over their head, but they think that it was fairly solid. So you guys know how we're always talking about the hype train and whether we want to ride the hype train all the way into the station or not. This article signifies the train leaving the station. Okay, this almost guarantees to me that there's going to be another Watch Dogs, even though I think we all kind of know that there will be another Watch Dogs. This is the beginning of that train, and this is their way of coming out and saying, hey, we're sorry, we'll do better next time. You know what I'm saying, man? This is their way of doing that, right? And like I said, I'm going to sit back and watch how this thing progresses, but I'm not really taking this for exactly what it's worth. A lot of times with news, you got to read between the lines. You got to think about the developer or the publisher, and you got to think about who's interviewing them. You got to see what's actually happening, right? And I'm just not taking this at face value. In other words, I think this article, this interview, was more about getting us set up for the next game than actually really caring about the faults of the first game. So look, I'm not here to make the claim that Watch Dogs 2 is going to let us down like the first one did. I can't predict the future, nor do I want to. What I can do, and what is well within my control, is to judge the sincerity behind this apology. I'm just sorry, guys, but when you apologize for a mistake that was made a year ago, and then shortly follow that apology up with how awesome part 2 is going to be, I just find that a tough pill to swallow. And it's at that point where I have to ask the question, are you truly sorry? Like, do you really want to earn the trust back from the gamers that you basically lied to? Or are you just sad that you got caught? And I'll leave you guys with the last thing that was said, and I'll quote this too. He says, "We're incredibly happy with the sales of the game and the experiences that the people are having. So it's a franchise. It goes into the franchise barn, and now we figure out what to do next. It's something that we can build on now." And that pretty much says it all. They say that they're incredibly happy with the sales of this game and the overall experience that gamers are having with this franchise. But I'm just wondering if you're incredibly happy that a good number of these sales were falsely generated based on the lies and hype that you created behind this game prior to its release. Because I could have swore that's what you just apologized for.